I know you achieve a good levels of success. You are a great teacher. You have your company. But I want to know, Hadar, what's your dream?
Okay. So I'm just like writing my vision again. I like to do it every few months to kind of like see, am I still like, do I still have that? So I have very ambitious goals, but I really want to.
Hey everyone, it's Fred, and I'm so excited today because I have this amazing conversation with this incredible teacher, Hadar Shemesh. She's an English teacher and an entrepreneur from Israel who worked with big companies like Google, Microsoft, Facebook, IBM, General Motors, and so on. She has impacted millions of people all over the world with her English lessons on YouTube and Instagram. And by the way, she speaks English with a beautiful American accent. You will love it. In this conversation, we talked about English pronunciation, challenges, the Impostor Syndrome, English fluency, and so much more. You will have a lot of different resources here just to help you to improve your English and improve your confidence too. So buckle up and let's get started. Okay, but before, let me ask you a question. Are you looking for a good way to practice your English? You know, to have a spontaneous conversation, to know how to give a speech in English or a presentation, you know, to how to behave during a job interview or during meetings, professional meetings. If you said yes, you will love this. In a few weeks, I will launch an English speaking club, a funny and safe place for you training your English on a daily basis to speak English with confidence and no more fear, no more hesitation, in a really good way. My purpose is to help you to speak English for long hours, like in meetings, interviews, public speeches, presentations, and so on. So if you are interested, just click the first link below. I will add you on a waiting list on WhatsApp, and there I will give you more details about when I will open the doors for this English speaking club and how everything is going to work, okay? So click below and I'll see you there. Well, now let's go to the interview. Let's get started. Well, today, guys, I'm so happy to be here today because today I have a special guest. And it's an honor to receive this teacher today. She's amazing. She's great. And I think you will love. So, Hadar, welcome to SilvaCast. It's an honor for me to have you here. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation. How are you doing?
I'm good. Oh my God. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be speaking here with you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I was very excited to have this moment with you because, you know, I'm a fan, I'm your student, and I think people will love our conversation today. So how about, first of all, please introduce yourself for those that maybe don't know you.
Sure. So my name is Hadar. I'm a non-native speaker of English. I moved to the US when I was 21, and my English was pretty mediocre. But I had my own journey. I studied acting, and as part of my acting studies, I acquired the American accent and other dialects of English. I didn't do it because I wanted to improve my English. I just wanted to become an actress in New York City. But it ended up really changing my entire English experience. And I fell in love with the sounds of English and the impact it has on you as a speaker. So fast forward till today, this is what I do. I'm a fluency and pronunciation coach. I help non-native speakers speak English with clarity, confidence, and freedom. And I incorporate a lot of elements into my teaching, whether it's from my theater studies, personal development, mindset work, life coaching, and of course, English. I have a global company. We serve students, thousands of students around the world. And I also train in some of the largest organizations. I do corporate training. So all English.
Wow, it's a lot. And every time when you say I'm a non-native English speaker, I got very, I don't know, the first time I saw you in a video on YouTube, I didn't notice that you are not from the US, for example. And when you said I'm a non-native English speaker, I got like, wow, this woman speaks very well. So what's the secret? So I got like, wow, I need to know more about this, because I think even native English speakers don't know that you are not from the US when they just met you. So what's your secret? How can you develop this type of English that's like incredible?
Wow. Well, first of all, I think that identifying as a non-native speaker is really important to me, because ultimately, no matter, how I come across at the beginning, I'm still a speaker of English as a second language. And as such, I still make mistakes. My pronunciation, some people might pick up on things. But I have acquired this way of speaking, like I told you, as part of my acting studies. I think it's a combination of a few things. One is the technique, right? I've learned how to use speech sounds, how to categorize them in the brain, how to organize them in my head, how to understand my challenges when speaking. So I was able to master that. I was also able to make it a habit by practicing effectively and teaching myself how to use it consistently. But it's not just sounds, it's also immersing or surrendering in a way to the rhythm of English and prosody, intonation, rhythm, and stress, which is such a significant element in communicating in a second language. And I think this is why people immediately feel like, oh, you sound like you're a native speaker, because it's really, a lot of it is not just the sounds, but really about the melody and the rhythm of English. And the last element would be stepping into that identity of speaking differently than what I was used to. So it's the mindset and giving myself permission to use the sounds that I've learned and the strategies, and to practice it consistently, feeling confident that I can use it without being judged or judging myself. And I think that is also an important component in this type of work.
Yeah, sure. I think the same. I think, well, first of all, when I was just starting to learn pronunciation, I thought pronunciation was just, the sounds. It's just, I need to pronounce this word like this word like that. So I was focused in just the sound. But, now I know that's more than just the sounds. It's a lot of different things. As you mentioned, rhythm, prosody, a lot of things. So it's involved in the pronunciation world that can help a student to master the pronunciation of English, because I know it's not easy to do that. What you did, it's totally out of the, let's say, the normal things. It's really outstanding. So how what's pronunciation? It's how can I say, it's form. It's just the sounds. What I need to focus on to have a good pronunciation.
Okay, so I think, first of all, we need to set goals, right? Or expectations. Because where I am, remember that my purpose for sounding the way I sound right now, and now it's like this is the natural way for me to speak. Like changing it back to what I was or how I spoke would feel really strange to me. But my goal was to be able to play American roles. And for that, I needed this pronunciation so that I wouldn't always get cast as the foreigner. I want to clarify that it's not a must to sound like me or like a native speaker, because clarity is more important than accuracy, and it's important to set expectations. But improvement is needed anyway, right? Like even if you want just to focus on clarity and flow and effortlessness, even if you would not acquire general American, still there is a lot of work that could be done for speakers of English as a second language to achieve this ability to deliver your message clearly, or to feel effortless, or to make it easier for people to understand. So the way I always look at it is there are actually stages in terms of what you need to improve. The first stage is to be able to perceive the differences. That means, or actually, I would take it one step back even, and start with identifying the key challenges. So if we're starting with the bare minimum, the 20%, like what do you really need to improve to get you know, 80% of your results, that would be like, you need to understand what that focus is. Is it the fact that you drop consonants at the end of at the end of words? Is it, substituting R's and L's or L's and W's, right? Is it anything else that prevents you from being clear or makes you feel self-conscious? Is it the R? Is it the TH? Is it the fact that you're not connecting your words together and you sound more choppy and there's less flow? So once you identify the key components that prevent you from sounding clear, because even to get to, speaking in general American, there are stages. Once you identify the most important elements, then you need to make sure that you can hear the differences, that you're actually aware of what is the difference between what happens in English and what happens in your first language. So for example, if you want to master the vowel pair sheep versus ship, you need to be able to hear it first, right? Or well versus well, right? Which could be a little more subtle. And if you can't hear it, you cannot make it. So first, it's about teaching your brain to hear the differences. If you don't have that in your first language, you're less likely to you will filter out this type of information, the differences. So you're training yourself to listen. Then you need to know how to produce a certain sound or play with your pitch or connect your words together. That's where it becomes like the physical element of pronunciation. So that would be the next step. Then that would be, we want to make it a habit. Pronunciation is a set of habits, right? Because you don't want to think about it and you want it to be automatic. And then repetition is critical because you need to repeat it again and again and again. I'm sure, like you've done a lot of work there. So you know the importance of making it a habit by intentional repetition, because that's the only way for you to be able to use it without thinking about it. And then you want to start incorporating it into your spontaneous speech. So you repeat it in practice, words, phrases, sentences, you read out loud, you do shadowing, you focus on that sound. All of that is great. But then you go out and you speak and then you're like, where is the R that I've practiced so well? What happened to the sheep ship? And that usually happens. The more you practice, it usually starts happening spontaneously. But what I recommend my students to do is to practice intentionally. So it's actually to practice free speaking and focusing on that sound that they're trying to integrate.
Wow, guys, you need to pay attention in everything. Take your notes because we have a great class today. So Hadar, thank you so much. The tips are amazing because, if we put in practice, like to be conscious about our sounds, as you mentioned, you mentioned something that is really interesting. You need to be a good listener before you become a good speaker, right? Yeah. So that thing is amazing because when we are studying English, we want to talk, we want to put the words out of our mouth, but sometimes we forgot to listen and to perceive the different sounds we have, and sometimes we do exactly what you said. For example, we have pairs that we don't know how to distinguish between, and then we can mispronounce. We can not be understood by others because we are not able to listen and understand before to speak. So this is really interesting. And
because your ear can pick up on everything. You hear it, but your brain filters out what's not needed, right? And this is where the listening comes in because you have to be intentional. And by the way, Fred, it's not just about sound, it's about everything. I think if you want to be a better communicator, it all starts with being a better listener as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you said something that for me, I just learned this from you, that's pronunciation and English. It's a habit. You need to build new habits if you want to speak in a good way. Because sometimes even now I'm learning pronunciation and everything. Even now, sometimes I get myself pronouncing words in the old way, and then wait a minute, this word is not like this. I need to change. because it's a habit. And then we need to practice intentionally, as you mentioned, just to get like, put this sound as a habit in our mind, and then the sound's going to be more natural, more easy. So yeah, I totally agree with you. This is amazing. This is really, when you are able to notice this, everything about this, we are able to speak better. So it's really good.
Yeah, and then we're also not so hard on ourselves for not getting the language, because you understand that it's not just about knowing the grammar and that's it, right? Like it's also, how you practice, how often you practice, the mindset work, the commitment, and all of that are essential part, but you don't learn it in traditional English studies.
Yeah. And let me ask you this question. You said that you are an actress and you are trying to improve your English there in America. So what were your challenges at that time? Because I know that you had a big challenge at that time. So how was it this for you? How was it challenge you had at that time?
So I was in my class. It was the two of us who were non-Americans, but the other guy, he had really like perfect pronunciation. I don't know how he acquired it. He's Norwegian, so he has all those sounds in his language. So for him, it was really easy, and I felt like the foreigner, the stranger, like the one with the accent and the one that struggles still. And I felt, on one hand, I felt unique and different, because also culturally different, and I had different perspectives, and I was older than everyone else because they all just they were 18 and I was 21 plus 22, no, 23. And so I liked it that I was different, but I didn't like it that it was always harder for me. Like I had to prove myself all the time. Things that were so immediate and easy for them, like reading a text out loud. I had to read it several times on my own first, to read it out loud, to feel confident before I dared to read it in front of the class. And for them, they could just pick up a text and read it. So I had to do a lot of additional work. In speech classes, which were for all students, like native speakers and non-native speakers, I had, like, for them, they wouldn't even do their homework, right? I had to spend, hours throughout the week practicing so that I could be at the level that they are at. It was harder for me to express my thoughts and feelings in, emotional classes or improv classes. It was so hard because the language has to be so immediate. And anyway, that's hard for me in my first language. So in English, let alone, I remember one time I was in an improv class and I excused myself. I wanted to go to the bathroom and I was like, what am I doing? I had like a panic attack. I started crying. I felt like such a fraud. I couldn't speak. I couldn't say anything. So I felt, I think it was an advantage because, and also I did work harder than everyone else. And that has paid off. I got like lead roles and I was, teachers noticed me. But at the same time, and I also had to work after school. They all hung out and I went to bartend right after. So I felt like it's not fair that I have to do all of this work so I think that as a non-native speaker, especially when you operate in an environment where most people are native speakers, you immediately compare yourself. You immediately feel like you have to work harder. But in hindsight, it was all to my advantage because I've learned so much from putting in this work and developing skills like being diligent and doing the practice and kind of like over preparing that has served me throughout my entire life.
Yeah, I believe that one of the ways to improve in every part of our life is when you are in a situation that's really challenging for you, you need to prove yourself, you need to work harder than everyone. So yeah. I think this makes us to grow so much when you have challenges, when you have dangerous situations like we don't have opportunity to fail. You need to do it. You need to overcome every challenge. So I believe that type of situation that build our life, build us as a professional, as an English learner, as everything. So I totally believe that without this experience, maybe you are not in the place that you are right now, because what you have learned there built your English, your professional life. So I think maybe today you are a better teacher because of that, right?
100%. And I also understand my students' struggles really well. Especially my students who are immigrants and they had to start over and to experience that feeling of, not being good enough and how to manage those thoughts. It's easier to talk about it when I'm past it, but I can really speak to their experience. And I think this is where the trust is built and our connection is made.
Yeah, you spoke about something that I have learned. And I have heard you speaking about this a lot of time, the impostor syndrome. Can you talk a little bit about this? Because I think this is really interesting because I feel like that sometimes. I know you felt like that sometimes. And I
still do.
Yeah, I think everyone here that is watching us now maybe face the same thing. So could you please talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, of course. So the imposter syndrome is a psychological pattern that around 70% of population experiences that to a certain degree, especially underrepresented communities or marginal communities like, people of color, women, LGBTQ, immigrants, and in our case, non-native speakers of English, especially communicating with native speakers. And the imposter syndrome is this feeling like in one phrase that you are not good enough, that on the outside they see you in a certain way, but in your head you feel like, oh, what they see is actually not what's it like inside, who I really am. And you have a lower of perception of yourself than what you think people have of you. And you're constantly afraid that you're going to be discovered as a fraud, as an imposter, that one day someone would say, I thought his English is better than this, or, this is what she does, but her English is not that great, right? Like, and feeling like people are going to be disappointed of you when they discover the real you, or that you're actually not as qualified as they think that you are. And also, as a result, it's really hard to celebrate your achievements, to acknowledge it, to feel like you're making an impact or progress. So you're constantly beating yourself up, feeling not good enough.
Yeah.
And you said it, like you said that you felt it. I feel it, I still feel it. I used to feel it a lot more. It's something that you'll need to learn to manage because it never goes away, unfortunately. But you
I
can
think
manage
so.
it.
I think so because with me it's the same. Sometimes I'm so confident. I'm so, I was born to do this, and there is days that I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm a fraud. What I'm doing here? So, what do you do, Hadar, to overcome this and to handle with this imposter syndrome?
So I do a few things. One is that when I feel like I'm getting sidetracked with these negative thoughts and like the inner critic and you're not good enough, I do a few things. One is I acknowledge what I'm grateful for, what I already have that I'm grateful for, and I write it down. The second thing is I remind myself my goals. I write everything that I visualize for myself in the future. Goals that I have, I write them in the present tense as if I've already achieved it. So I put the focus on where I want to be and not necessarily on the things that are not working. Usually these emotions are triggered when maybe I'm not seeing the results that I want to see. Maybe I get criticized. Maybe I get some negative feedback. Maybe a student had a bad experience and I'm like, I'm kind of like overthinking it. So I remind myself my purpose, right? Like, what am I doing? What is my goal? And then also something that we have on the team, and I've been doing this for years, we keep all our the student success stories. So every time a student shares a win over email or on a Facebook page or shares it with a coach, then we post it. We have a special channel on Slack. This is the app we communicate, and we just share it. And I go back to that channel when I feel like it, and I remind myself these accomplishments, and I'm like, okay, this is what matters. And I recommend my students to do that, to really document their accomplishments and successes, so that when they feel like they have nothing to celebrate, they can come back to it and be like, well, maybe there is, right? Maybe actually I'm not that horrible as I'm making myself to be.
Yeah, I use the same strategy. I go back to the comments below the videos, and I look at them and know, okay, people, I'm helping somebody here, so I'm not a fraud.
Yeah.
A fraud. I'm doing a good thing. So same strategy. So thank you.
And as a content creator, like you put yourself out there and you make yourself vulnerable, and in that situation you might get hurt, right? Like it's a given. You will have trolls and critics that would try to validate your inner critic. It's really our job to understand that this is not the truth, right? Even though it feels like it, it's not the truth. And usually it's such a small percentage of the people who are just unsatisfied and they project all of their crap onto you. And we need to learn how to not get distracted by it.
And sometimes I notice that we are more critical than other people. Sometimes we are more than others. So it's just us sometimes. So we need to look more in us than, to look at criticisms and things like that. So sometimes just, it's just a thing that that is in our mind. So it's not something else.
Yeah. Like sometimes you might have a negative thought about yourself, and then someone would just make an impatient face or something like that. Maybe they just had a bad lunch or something like that, right? Like, but you interpret it as, oh, they're now thinking about my English and they're criticizing, where in fact that person could have not even cared about your English, right? But because we have these thoughts already, we use what we see around the world or around us as validation for these negative thoughts. And we need to be mindful of that.
Yeah. Hadar, let me ask you this question. What do you think that build a good English learner, a good English speaker? What are the qualities they need to have so to become to have a great English level, and to start to speak with confidence? What are the qualities they have?
Well, I usually have like a set answer, but now when you asked it, like the one thing that came to my mind was they need to want to speak with other people, right? Like they need to want to communicate and understand that English is the means for something higher and deeper than just the language. It's about making real connections, and you need to open yourself up to connecting with people. And I know it could be hard, especially for people who are very busy or introverted that might just want to learn on their own and that's it. But the real successful learners are the ones who really seek for real connection, because then again, like they take what they know and they're able to improve because they have a bigger mission there. So that would be something really important. Mindset is key. So there's a lot that I can say about mindset, but I guess the main thing would be to understand that this is an ongoing journey. It's not a one-time project, and to be in it for the long haul, right? Like be ready. And as such, there will be ups and there will be downs, and there will be situations where you will feel like crap and situations where you will feel like a king or a queen. And just like when you feel crappy, it doesn't mean anything. When you feel amazing, it doesn't mean anything, because it could change, because you're a human being and that is okay. The whole idea is that it's like a long-term journey and we need to stay committed to it. And also to understand that with such a journey, there will be situations where you would feel like a failure, but it doesn't mean that you did anything wrong, or it doesn't affect who you are as a person. Right? It's a part of the journey. You will make mistakes. You will get stuck. You will feel vulnerable. You will be criticized. But it like, as long as you see it as milestones, you will be able to succeed. If you see it as barriers that say, no, you cannot enter here, then it's going to be really easy to quit. And in that, it's this idea of it's a lifestyle, right? Like you have to build healthy habits around learning and practicing English if you want to level up your English. it has to be like, you have to practice it consistently. You can't read a book or, take a lesson once a week and feel incredible. You will improve, but it's not going to be the breakthrough that you're looking for. So making a commitment and understanding that you got to build the infrastructure and the environment in your life to be able to show up consistently every single day. And when you do practice, to know what really matters and not get distracted with, like insignificant vocabulary or, like things that you're less likely to use, and really focus on always like understand what is the most important thing for you to know right now.
It's a long run, right? It's for the
Yeah.
whole life. You need to be committed, and make your journey the most enjoyable possible. Because
And 100%. And thank you for saying that, because it has to be enjoyable. It has to be fun. You have to love it.
That's true. Surround yourself by good people, then you will be in a good environment.
Yes, absolutely. And about this journey, like it's so funny about learning languages, because it starts off really, really hard, and then you feel like you're improving, and then all of a sudden you realize how much more there is to learn, and you feel like a beginner, but you don't take into consideration the progress that you've already made.
Yeah.
So you always feel like, oh my God, like I will never be able to get all of this, but you're still, evolving and progressing. There's always something else to learn. There's always like something that you didn't know, you don't know, right? You didn't know that you didn't know. So that's the beauty of it too.
Yeah, I think so. This little progress that we have every day sometimes is not perceptible. We don't see it. But when you notice somebody else speaking, oh, your English is getting better. Your pronunciation is so good. So you start to notice that I'm improving, because sometimes we feel that we are not. We feel the same.
How do you know that you're improving?
Normally, sometimes I notice when I pronounce a word, for example, and this sounds good to me. Or when somebody else tells me, wow, Fred, your TH is perfect now. So things like that. And because sometimes we don't notice, we are just speaking, so we don't notice. But it's always good when somebody else notice and tell you. So this is the way I normally notice that I'm improving, because sometimes I feel like my English is getting worse, just because sometimes I'm like tired, or I'm like so busy, and then I think my English is not getting better. But when I notice somebody else speaking about this, I notice that it's working, so it's going good. So let's keep doing.
Amazing.
And Hadar, speaking a little bit about pronunciation, if you could just choose 3 sounds that we as a student needs to master, which sounds could be like Fred, if you want to speak English better, you need to focus on these 3 sounds, and then your English is going to
just sounds, not, let's say, nothing related to prosody, or altogether.
Yeah.
Okay.
Altogether. Yeah.
Okay. So I would let's start with sounds. I think the R is an important sound, because it's such a unique sound. We categorize as the R so many different sounds. It could be the R, or the R, or ra, or right? So many different languages have completely different sounds, and we all categorize them as an R. And since it's such a frequent sound and very dominant in English, I feel like when we don't use it, it doesn't necessarily affect clarity, but it does affect the quality of speech. Now, specifically for a lot of, for certain languages, sometimes they also substitute the R with another sound. whether it's an L or sometimes an H for Brazilian Portuguese speakers, some dialects, then, like it could also be a serious clarity challenge. So I would recommend for people who struggle with the R, people usually feel self-conscious about it, to focus on that. Now, I would also acknowledge, and I don't want to talk about that. I'm just going to put it as a side note. If people drop sounds or insert sounds that don't exist, so drop sounds, for example, mind instead of mind, or replace consonants that both exist, like R and L, or for example, W and V, it will definitely affect clarity. So it's not for all speakers. It's very individual based on your first language. So I'm going to just put it on the side. This is number one, right? If you're dropping sounds, if you're adding sounds, if you are replacing consonants, right, one with another, and both of them exist, this would be your number one. If not, for the general public, I would say the R. I would also say connected speech. And in that, to link ideas together. When you think in a group of words, right? Like it's a thought. A thought is a bunch of words strung up together. It's not separate words. So we want our speech to be the same, especially in English, because connected speech is key. Now, we're able to do that also when we are able to reduce the less important and stress the more important. I think all of that goes together when it comes to linking. So I feel that is very important. And people who deliberately separate the words to sound clear, they actually sound less clear. So I would focus on that. And the third thing that I usually recommend, there's a lot, right, that we could talk about. I would focus on open vowel sounds, either the a or the ah or both. But the reason why I would focus on that is because a lot of speakers, they don't open their mouth at all, right? So the mouth is really, really closed. Hello.
Me.
And I think learning how to pronounce those vowels, it doesn't just get them to pronounce the word cat better instead of cat. It also changes how they use their jaw and use their mouth when speaking in English. It changes the placement of the sound, creates more resonance. It creates more elasticity. You're able to pronounce other open vowel sounds. So this is why I love working on the sound, not just because you need to get it accurately, but because it changes how you perceive, like how you use your jaw and mouth when speaking.
Yeah, it makes a lot of difference. Before, having a class with you, I didn't notice that the "a" as in cat, you need to open your mouth. So I pronounced with my mouth almost closed, so the sound was.
And what
was
did it sound like?
best.
Yeah, instead. So, what did it sound like when you didn't open your mouth?
It's like cat. It's
Exactly.
not the same. It's not the same.
No.
And even the stressing sound in the word, it make a lot of this difference when you emphasize the letter. So because you open your mouth and speak in the way that you need to speak. So I noticed that pronunciation is more about you need to use your muscles, your mouth, your tongue, and everything in the right position. It's a technique. You need to do that in the right way, and the sound is going to be there. It's going to be exactly what should be, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Well, thank you so much for this three main points that I totally agree with you. And Hadar, now I want to know something from you that I'm curious about it. I know you achieve a good levels of success. You are a great teacher. You have your company. But I want to know, Hadar, what's your dream?
Okay. So I'm just like writing my vision again. I like to do it every few months to kind of like see, am I still like, do I still have that? So I have very ambitious goals, but I really want to create a system that will be accessible to a lot more people around the world, to learn English, to level up their English, right? I'm not good at teaching the language. But I'm great at taking you when you are able to have basic conversations to fully expressing yourself. So I want to create a platform that will take all of the knowledge that we have in the system that we have created specifically inside one of our programs called Beyond, where we're like really solidifying a system that allows people to go through this transformation. And of course, new sound in a more intense period of time, and to make it a lot more accessible for people around the world using technology, using AI, and of course, the power of community to be able to connect people around the world. So to find something that would kind of like disrupt how traditional English is taught, because like it has, the mindset work and the building habits and the community and the being able to track your progress. All of that is critical. And there's a lot of knowledge that is untapped in this industry. And I really want to make it accessible and to make a change in how English is learned. So that is on a professional level and personal level, to be able to do that and still have a life.
Right. Good. And about the vision, I think you are really close to achieve it, because I have seen everything in your platform. It's outstanding. It's totally, I don't see a lot of things like this often. So it's an amazing.
Oh, thank you.
You are getting close.
Thank you so much.
And last question, Hadar, if you could give just one piece of advice for those students that are, stuck at the same level, that they are hopeless about English, what you would say?
Well, first of all, being stuck oftentimes means either that you have a limiting belief that this is the best you can do at this point, right? Or you just lost passion for doing this work and you're just repeating what you already know, right? And then it's kind of like you cannot progress when you're bored. You cannot progress when you're doing more of the same. So when you are stuck, you have to shake things up and do things differently. Like this is a must. You got to change your mindset. You got to change your practice habit. You got to change how you the content that you consume, do things differently, because probably what has got you here, which is great, won't get you to the next level, right? What got you here is not what's going to get you to the next level. So you got to change things up, have a strategy, and have a clear direction, like where you want to go, what that would mean. A lot of times people they kind of like work on autopilot. They do more of the same and they don't even know what they want to do with it. Even if you're not going to accomplish those goals, have a goal. So you have a direction. So you'll know when you've progressed and succeeded, right? So it doesn't feel like being stuck or being in a plateau. A lot of people actually do progress, but they have no idea how to measure it, right?
Yeah.
So.
And challenge yourself, doing something different, something that scares you. That scares you. Like I am not comfortable doing that. For example, for me, I'm not 100% comfortable doing this right now, but I'm doing it. I'm jumping the ocean and swimming there because I think this will help me to improve. So challenge yourself.
And you're making an impact, right? Like, so you're doing this, you're getting better. Yeah. Every time you do it, you allow people to share their vision and their stories, and it inspires other people. And it's all thanks to you and your platform. Imagine not doing it, and preventing people from having experienced, these conversations with you that are so incredibly valuable. So again, it's like you have this perception that maybe I'm not good enough, maybe this, maybe that, but in fact, you are making a difference. And you're doing a fantastic job, but I know it doesn't matter what people would tell you. It's about your own personal experience.
Yeah.
So you gotta do something that scares you. And that would usually be the something different. Because when you're so comfortable, it doesn't push you to change.
I usually say that the comfort zone is a dry land where nothing grows. So stay out of there.
Definitely.
In the comfort zone, you don't have the chance to grow
Yes.
and do anything.
I love that. Yes.
Good. Hadar, if people want to find you, where they can go, what's your social medias, YouTube, Instagram?
So I'm not very consistent with all my platforms because each has its own name. So I guess hadarshemesh.com, that's where everything is, my website. Instagram account is Hadar at Accentsway. I have a podcast called the Fluency Podcast. And also I have
amazing.
a YouTube channel. Thank you. Thank you. And you can find me on YouTube as well, Accentsway English with Hadar.
Guys, the link is in the description. So
that would be the easiest.
Go there. Yeah, I think if you don't know Hadar yet, you will love the content. So it's really, really amazing. And Hadar, thank you so much for being with me today. As I mentioned in the beginning, it's an honor to have you here. I am like accomplished a dream to interview you. So thank you so much for your kindness and for teaching us a lot of good things. It was a good conversation. So thank you so much. And if you want to say something, please do it now.
Just thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a fantastic job. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for the great questions and the opportunity to share my story with your audience.
Thank you so much. And guys, if you don't subscribe to the channel yet, please click below, like the video. And I think this will help you to grow much and improve your English too. So Hadar, thanks again. And guys, see you the next episode. God bless all of you and see you there. Bye-bye.
Thank you.